The Earth was not always as we know it. Once, vast sheets of ice swallowed continents, and seas fell to reveal bridges between worlds. Storms thundered across frozen plains, where mammoths roamed and saber-toothed predators lurked in the shadows. Humanity, fragile and scattered, stood against the cold winds with only fire and will to survive. This is the story of Earth's frozen roller coaster, the Great Ice Ages, a saga of ice and fire, extinction and survival. A tale written in glaciers, carved into valleys, and carried in the memory of humankind. And within it lies not just the history of our planet, but the lessons for our future. The Earth has never stood still. Across billions of years, continents have shifted, oceans have risen and retreated, and skies have thundered with storms that carved the world anew. Yet among all these transformations, few were as dramatic or as merciless as the Ice Ages. It began not with a single frozen moment, but with cycles, deep pulses in Earth's heartbeat, stretching across tens of thousands of years, subtle tilts in the planet's axis, slight wobbles in its orbit, and shifts in the distance from the Sun conspired together, setting the stage for immense swings in climate. When conditions aligned, winters grew longer, summers shorter, and the slow advance of ice began. Over centuries, snow that refused to melt layered upon itself, compressing into thick sheets of ice. What started as glistening white patches on mountaintops soon spread into continent-spanning glaciers. Vast slabs of ice, taller than skyscrapers, marched across the land with an unrelenting weight. Mountains groaned as valleys were carved deeper. Rivers, once free, became trapped beneath frozen ceilings. The world of the Ice Ages was alien compared to today. North America lay buried beneath a sheet of ice more than 2 miles thick. Europe, too, bowed beneath a frozen crown stretching from Scandinavia to the Alps. Oceans shrank as trillions of tons of water were locked away in the ice, exposing land bridges between continents. The Bering Land Bridge connected Asia to the Americas, opening paths for early human migrations that would shape history. But while some regions froze, others transformed into harsh deserts and wind-swept tundra. The global climate engine was not merely cold, it was chaotic. Vast dust storms swept across plains stripped of vegetation. Monsoons shifted their rhythms, starving some lands of rain while flooding others. For life, the Ice Ages were both destroyer and sculptor. Forests retreated, grasslands expanded. Animals that could adapt thrived, while others vanished. The mighty mammoths, armored with woolly coats, roamed the frozen plains. Saber-toothed cats hunted in packs. And humanity, still fragile, still learning its place, found itself tested against the elements in ways no creature before had endured. This was Earth's frozen roller coaster, a planet teetering between warmth and cold, driven not by human hands, but by cosmic cycles far beyond its control. Yet this was only the beginning, for as the ice grew, it would set into motion a chain of events that reshaped coastlines, built new ecosystems, and ultimately challenged the survival of humankind. The story of the Ice Ages was not just about glaciers and snow. It was about resilience. It was about how a young species, small and scattered, learned to endure on a world that seemed determined to erase it. And as the first great glaciations spread across the continents, the stage was set for a long struggle between Earth's frozen grip and the life that refused to surrender. Next, the ice will reach its peak, when the frozen giants ruled the world and humanity faced its greatest trials. The world at its frozen peak was a place of extremes. Roughly 20,000 years ago, the last glacial maximum descended, a time when the ice sheets reached their greatest extent, locking Earth in a frigid embrace. Nearly a third of the planet's surface lay under ice, sculpted into towering ridges and endless white deserts. North America's Laurentide ice sheet sprawled from the Arctic Circle to what is now New York City, a crushing wall of ice that reshaped the land beneath it. In Europe, the Scandinavian ice sheet spread across the heart of the continent, its weight grinding mountains into dust, carving fjords, and pushing boulders across vast plains. Even in the southern hemisphere, glaciers swallowed great swaths of Patagonia and New Zealand. The Earth's face was etched with scars of its frozen conqueror. Sea levels dropped by more than 400 feet, exposing entire landscapes now hidden beneath oceans. The English Channel did not exist. Britain was welded to mainland Europe by grasslands and tundra. Australia connected to New Guinea and Tasmania, forming a single vast continent. The geography of the Ice Age world was one of strange bridges and unfamiliar coasts. But while the planet lay under ice, life fought back. Megafauna roamed in staggering numbers. Mammoths thundered across Eurasian steppes, their woolly coats bristling against the winds. Woolly rhinoceroses scraped snow aside to uncover frozen grasses. Enormous ground sloths moved slowly through the cold forests of the Americas, while predators, like the terrifying saber-toothed cat, stalked the shadows. This was an age where survival meant adaptation on a scale nature had rarely seen. Thick fur, layers of fat, and incredible endurance became the currency of life. For many, these adaptations worked. For others, the Ice Age would be their final chapter. And amidst this cold and perilous world, humanity endured. Small bands of hunter-gatherers eked out a living at the edge of the glaciers. They fashioned tools from stone and bone, built shelters from mammoth tusks and hides, and followed the great herds that became their lifeline. Fire was not just warmth, it was survival, a flickering defiance against the darkness of a frozen earth. But humanity was not alone in its struggle. Other hominin species, Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, walked the same cold landscapes. Each species adapted, hunted, and fought to endure. Yet the Ice Age would be both a crucible and a filter, shaping who survived and who vanished into extinction. The frozen maximum was not eternal. The Earth's great cycles were already turning, and change stirred at the edges of the ice. But in this moment, the planet stood in its deepest freeze, the glaciers holding dominion over land and sea, pressing life into corners of survival. This frozen dominion, however, was unstable, for the ice that advanced could also retreat, and, when it did, the world would be unrecognizable. The great melt was coming. And with it, new challenges, new landscapes, and new opportunities for humanity to rise. Next, the thaw begins. Melting glaciers unleash floods of unimaginable power, reshaping the Earth in an age of cataclysms. The reign of the glaciers was never permanent. Just as cosmic rhythms had conspired to bring the ice, so too did they begin to turn the planet back toward warmth. A subtle shift in Earth's orbit, a tilt in its axis, a slow increase in the sun's summer power, all pushed the ice sheets toward collapse. The great thaw began in silence. A drip became a stream became a river, and rivers became torrents. The vast frozen giants that had smothered continents began to retreat, and with their retreat came chaos. Glacial lakes formed along the edges of the ice sheets, reservoirs of water held back by fragile frozen walls. For centuries they grew, swelling, into inland seas. And then, without warning, they burst. Walls of ice shattered, unleashing mega-floods that carved new landscapes in a matter of days. Valleys became canyons, plains were scoured into deserts, and boulders larger than houses were hurled across the land like pebbles. In North America, one such event unleashed the waters of glacial Lake Missoula, creating floods so vast they tore across the Pacific Northwest with unimaginable force. Entire landscapes were rearranged in hours, deep scars that remain etched in the earth to this day. Similar floods swept through Europe and Asia, carving rivers, lakes, and basins that would one day cradle human civilizations. The retreating ice revealed new lands. Where there had once been silence and snow, forests returned. Grasslands spread across fertile valleys. Rivers, once choked by ice, now flowed freely, weaving webs of life across the continents. For animals, it was both an opportunity and a trial. The mammoths and rhinos followed the grasslands, but their icy kingdom was shrinking. New species, better adapted to warmer climates, rose to dominance. For humanity, the thaw was both salvation and danger. The floods destroyed lands and forced migrations, but they also opened fertile ground for survival. In the fertile crescent of the Near East, rivers swollen by glacial melt-fed plains that would become cradles of agriculture. In Europe, the forests filled with game and berries. The world that emerged from the thaw was one of abundance, but only for those who could adapt quickly. The melting ice also reshaped the oceans. Sea levels rose, swallowing coastlines, drowning lowlands, and cutting off land bridges that had once connected continents. The Bering Land Bridge disappeared beneath waves, isolating the Americas. The English Channel filled, turning Britain into an island. What had once been a connected world became divided by water. Yet, as Earth warmed, it was not only land and sea that transformed, the climate itself grew volatile. Sudden cold snaps interrupted warming, storms lashed coasts with ferocity, and the balance of survival teetered between flood and famine. The Ice Age was not over, but it was in retreat, leaving behind a planet redefined by water, chaos, and rebirth. The world was changing faster than ever, and the species that could adapt would inherit the future. For humans, this was a turning point. The chaos of the thaw was also the dawn of opportunity. From scattered hunters, they would begin their slow march towards civilization. Next, humanity seizes the changing world, using fire, tools, and community to survive as giants of the Ice Age fade into extinction. As the ice retreated and warmth crept back across the planet, the world entered a time of profound transformation. For the towering creatures that had once ruled the frozen plains, the end of the Ice Age was the beginning of their decline. Atrophy. Mammoths, once thundering in endless herds across the Eurasian steppe, now found their icy domain shrinking day by day. The woolly rhinoceroses, armored in thick fur, could no longer endure in the damp, warming climates. The saber-toothed cats, masters of ambush in snowy forests, struggled as their prey dwindled. Slowly, the great megafauna, creatures that had dominated Earth for hundreds of thousands of years, began to vanish. Some perished with dignity, leaving bones scattered across the tundra. Others lingered in isolated refuges, like mammoths that survived on Wrangel Island long after their kin had disappeared from the mainland. Yet extinction was inexorable, and one by one, the Ice Age titans passed into memory. But as the giants fell, a new force was rising: humanity. In the harsh crucible of the Ice Age, humans had been forged into survivors. They had mastered fire, learned to fashion tools with precision, and organized into bands that relied on cooperation as much as strength. Where mammoths relied on size and saber-tooths on fang, humans relied on mind. With stone blades, they brought down beasts larger than themselves. With shelters made from bone, hide, and wood, they endured the bitter cold. With language and culture, they shared knowledge across generations. Humanity was not the strongest, nor the fastest, but it was the most adaptable. And in an age of relentless change, adaptability was survival. The warming Earth brought new opportunities. Forests spread, rivers teemed with fish, plains grew rich with grazing herds. Humans followed these resources, expanding farther and faster than ever before. Across Eurasia, they painted their lives onto cave walls, testaments of survival, hunting, and spirit. In the Americas, they pushed southward, filling the continents with footprints where none had been before. In Africa, the cradle of humankind, they flourished in the shifting savannas, preparing for the dawn of agriculture, but their rise was not without consequence. Some scientists believe that humanity's relentless hunting hastened the downfall of the Ice Age megafauna. Others argue that climate change alone sealed the fate of mammoths and saber-tooths. Perhaps it was both, a collision of natural upheaval and human ingenuity. Whatever the cause, the balance of power was shifting, and humankind was stepping into a role it had never held before: the shaper of worlds. The Ice Age was ending, and with it, a way of life. The vast frozen plains gave way to forests and rivers. The giant beasts gave way to smaller, more familiar animals. And scattered human tribes began the long, slow transition from hunters to settlers. Yet the Earth's climate was not finished with its swings. The warmth brought stability, but also new challenges. Storms, droughts, and sudden shifts would continue to test humanity's resilience. Still, for the first time, humans were not merely surviving. They were adapting in ways that would one day allow them to master the very forces that had once threatened their existence. The Ice Age giants were gone, but from their shadows rose a new power: the human story. Next, the rise of civilization begins, driven by climate, rivers, and the whole lessons learned in the frozen crucible of the past. The end of the Ice Age was not just the collapse of glaciers, it was the birth of something new. As the great ice sheets retreated, Earth entered a warmer and more stable climate period, the Holocene. For the first time in tens of thousands of years, the wild swings of temperature and storm began to calm. It was within this fragile stability that humanity found its opportunity to rise. The landscapes left behind by the ice were fertile. Rivers carved by melting glaciers carried nutrient-rich soils into valleys. Grasslands flourished, attracting herds of animals. Forests expanded, offering wood, fruit, and game. What had once been desolation became abundance. For millennia, humans had roamed as hunters and gatherers, following the rhythms of animals and seasons. But now, in this warmer world, they began to linger. Along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, the Nile, the Indus, and the Yellow River, they planted seeds. At first, it was small, wild grains scattered near camps. But the harvests brought reliability, and reliability brought settlement. The transition was gradual, yet profound. No longer bound to constant migration, humans built permanent shelters. Villages grew from clusters of huts, and with villages came cooperation, storage, and defense. Domestication followed, first of plants, then of animals. Wheat, barley, and rice sustained people through the seasons, while goats, cattle, and sheep provided meat, milk, and muscle. Agriculture changed humanity more than the Ice Age ever had. With food came population growth. With population came complexity. People dug canals to irrigate crops, crafted pottery to store grain, and raised walls to protect their communities. By harnessing the power of the post-Ice Age environment, humans became architects of their own survival. But stability also demanded sacrifice. Farming tied people to the land, exposing them to drought, flood, and famine in ways nomads had never known. Diseases spread more easily in clustered villages. Inequality emerged as some controlled surplus, while others labored. The gift of agriculture carried burdens, yet it was the path forward. The memory of the Ice Age lingered. Myths of great floods, frozen lands, and fire from the skies echoed in the oral traditions of countless cultures. Humanity remembered the chaos of climate in stories passed down through generations. And those stories, born in the shadows of glaciers, became the seeds of religion, ritual, and the human search for meaning. As centuries passed, villages grew into towns, towns into cities. Stone replaced bone as a tool. Words carved into clay replaced cave paintings. The rivers that had once surged with glacial melt now cradled the first civilizations. The frozen crucible of the Ice Age had forged humanity into survivors. The warmth of the Holocene forged them into builders. And from this transformation, a new chapter of Earth's story began. Not written in ice and stone, but in culture, invention, and the rising power of humankind. Next, the story turns to the lessons of the Ice Ages, how climate shaped not only the past, but how it continues to shape the destiny of the planet today. The Ice Ages have ended, but their legacy lingers in every corner of the planet. The mountains scarred by glaciers, the valleys carved by floods, the fertile soils carried by ancient rivers, all are reminders of the frozen trials that once gripped the Earth. Humanity, too, carries that legacy, written not in stone, but in survival. From the crucible of ice and fire, people emerged as masters of adaptation. They had endured the coldest winters, hunted giants across frozen plains, and weathered the chaos of melting floods. Out of that struggle came the seeds of agriculture, settlement, and civilization itself. Without the trials of the Ice Age, the story of humankind might have been far different. But the Ice Ages also whisper warnings. They reveal a truth too vast to ignore. Climate is never still. Earth's heartbeat pulses in cycles, sometimes warming, sometimes cooling, driven by forces, both cosmic and earthly. Even now, the remnants of those cycles can be traced in ice cores, sediments, and fossils. The great frozen past teaches us that the world can change with startling speed, and life must always adapt or perish. Today, humanity faces a different kind of climate shift. Not one born of distant orbits or tilting axes, but of its own making. Rising greenhouse gases warm the planet at a pace unseen in natural history. Glaciers retreat once more, seas rise, and storms intensify. The lessons of the Ice Age remind us that when climates change, so too do coastlines, ecosystems, and destinies. Yet the Ice Age story is not only about loss, it is also about resilience. Life survived the frozen gauntlet. Humanity endured when the odds seemed impossible. The same adaptability that once carried people through glacial storms now offers the chance to meet new challenges with ingenuity and resolve. The Earth's frozen roller coaster is not finished. One day, distant millennia from now, the cycles may turn again, and ice may return. But in the present, the responsibility lies with humanity, not just to endure, but to choose how the story continues. The tale of the Ice Ages is not merely history. It is a mirror held to our time, a reminder that the forces of climate are both fragile and immense. And just as ancient humans stood against the frozen winds with fire in their hands, so too must humanity today stand with knowledge, innovation, and unity. For the Ice Ages shaped us, tested us, and forged us. And in their echoes, we find both our origins and our future. The frozen giants have long since melted, but the story of Earth's climate is still being written, and the pen now is in human hands. The Ice Ages have ended, but their legacy lives on. In the valleys carved by glaciers, in the fossils of giants, and in the resilience of humanity itself. From frozen plains to the first civilizations, the journey of Earth's climate is the journey of us all. The story reminds us of a timeless truth. Climates shift, worlds change, and survival belongs to those who adapt. Just as our ancestors once stood against the cold winds with fire in their hands, today we face new challenges, and the choices we make will shape tomorrow's world. Thank you for watching this journey through Earth's frozen past. If you found it inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so together we can keep exploring the hidden chapters of our planet's story.